Here we go. All right, just give it a few more seconds. Just a couple more people in the waiting room. All right, I will get it started and I will admit people as they pop in. So, welcome everyone to our masterclass. Thank you so much for your patience and understanding as we had to postpone a couple of times. Just makes the suspense all the more for tonight's masterclass, which is great. So, welcome you all to our March Masterclass, Greener Pastures, the start of sustainable solutions for equine veterinary practice. So I just add Neil and Sarah. My name is Claire, for those of you that don't know, and I'm the programs lead here at Vets for Climate Action. And in just a moment, we'll be hearing from our newest team member at VfCA, Dr. Caitlin Wood. Before I do continue, though, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to our First Nations people, past, present, and emerging. Traditional owners have cared for this country upon which we work and meet for over 60,000 years. Its lands, oceans, rivers, its trees, and of course, its wildlife. We endorse the Uluru Statement and acknowledge that this land has never been ceded. Just a bit of a VFCA introduction. For those of you that don't know much about VFCA, we represent concerned vets, vet nurses, practices, and industry partners across Australia who want climate action. At VfCA, we are working to inspire and educate both within the veterinary profession and to the wider community. We promote sustainable veterinary care through our climate care program and very soon to be equine emissions reduction program, both world first management tools designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and increase sustainability in veterinary practice. Just a bit about our amazing presenter. Dr. Caitlin Wood graduated with honours from the University of Queensland School of Veterinary Science in 2007. Caitlin initially practiced as an equine veterinarian in southeast Queensland and has since worked in various clinical and academic settings. Caitlin brings a wealth of knowledge and experience with expertise in veterinary epidemiology, scientific research, teaching, and communication. Caitlin's journey has also taken her to several African countries, including Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Zambia, where she developed a deep interest in public health and emerging infectious diseases. This experience reinforced her passion for One Health approach, which recognizes the interconnectedness of human, animal, and environmental health. Caitlin holds a PhD from the University of Queensland, where her thesis focused on detection and epidemiology of Coxiella burnetii infection in beef cattle in Northern Australia and the potential risk to public health. Caitlin's also a proud member of the Australian and New Zealand College of Veterinary Scientists, Veterinary Epidemiology chapter, and was awarded the Chris Baldock Award in 2019. Just a reminder for tonight's masterclass, please have your microphone muted during the presentation, and remember that there will definitely be times for questions in the end. Caitlin, over to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Claire. Give me one moment just to get my share screen set up here. Okay. Does that look like you can all see
Perfect.
my screen? Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Claire, and thank you to everyone for making the time to attend tonight. I wanted to just give you a really brief overview. That tonight I will start off by talking a little bit about myself and why I'm here. I'm then going to define a few terms like climate change and net zero, and then really get into the crux of why we're all here tonight to discuss our new program to help equine veterinarian teams start their journey to a sustainable future. But don't worry, we'll have plenty of time at the end for a bit of friendly Q&A. Please get my attention if I've gone over, Claire, and I can't see any of the pop-ups. My share screen doesn't allow me to see that well of the chat group. Okie dokie. So I did want to just give you all a little bit more background about myself. I guess less about my career and qualifications and just a little bit more about my personal life and why I'm here today working with Vets for Climate Action. So I hope you can see this beautiful picture. This is where I live. It's on Springbrook Mountain in the Gold Coast hinterland. We're on 300 acres of land that's a mix of grazing pastures and regenerated rainforest. We're also surrounded by the beautiful Springbrook National Park that is a really very special place to come. A range of bushwalks, waterfalls, and wildlife. I know Steph's going to be in the area soon, so I might drag her out to have a look at Twin Falls. It's very cold, but lovely to swim at the bottom there. So my connection with Springbrook and I guess, the Australian environment really started as a very, very young child. My parents would bring us here to get away from the big smoke of Brisbane, where they had a little hobby farm with beef cattle and an orchard of macadamias and avocado trees. But this is where I fell in love with horses. This is probably around 1986. There's me and my brother, and then my very first pony, a little Welsh mountain pony named Sandy. It's probably early 1990s. Now, I've been really lucky to be able to then have my own children on the farm here with, this is Spotty. That's about 10 years ago now. Here's fast forward 10 years to my daughter, same child who's 15 now, sitting on poor old Spotty. And yes, Spotty is obese, and no, Spotty doesn't have laminitis just yet. He is still going over 30 years of age in our retirement paddock. So look, a few years ago, turning 40, I had an awakening. It's what I call a midlife crisis now. We're sticking with it. And my husband and I decided, why don't we move to the farm full time? So we did that with our now teenage children. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that we were able to, provide this connection with land and animals that I had growing up. I do still have horses that I ride very badly. But you know what? I love them. And I guess that's really why I became a vet to start off with. I love horses. So I even became a horse vet, even if it was only for a short few years until my daughter was born. Then I kind of struggled to manage after hours of colicking horses with at home colicking babies. So let's skip a little bit. In 2013, for my husband's work, we decided to move to West Africa with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, as you do. And I experienced a real culture shock, along with meeting many wonderful people and having many wonderful new experiences. In Sierra Leone, I've discovered some of the most beautiful beaches in the world that actually rival Australian beaches. This is just outside of Freetown called Bure Beach. And it's where I also, I guess, was exposed to a diverse range of livestock transportation. Goats on motorbikes, chickens in handbags, and once I actually saw a full-size cow get out of the boot of a sedan car. It was phenomenal. I wish I got it on video, but I didn't at the time. While we lived in Africa, we were also able to travel. And along my travels, I always made sure I stayed connected with horses. This is my daughter and I riding in Zanzibar. We've ridden on the beaches in Mozambique. We've visited Tanzania. And then my daughter actually started official horse riding lessons in Ghana at the local army stables. She then continued horse riding in Zambia. So, that connection with horses has always been there for me. And again, I'm very grateful that I was able to give my children some of these wonderful experiences, going to international schools and really getting a much broader perspective of the world. Now, this might all sound very, very romantic, but as you can imagine, there were quite a few challenges of living in Africa. And it really did open my eyes up to global health issues that maybe I never really fully thought about in such depth before. And without the ability to hide all of the rubbish, many beaches in the city were just covered more with litter and plastics than sea foam. In Sierra Leone, you could really see, the extreme effects of climate change. So when there was flooding there, it didn't just mean an increase in your home insurance and a big cleanup. For locals, this meant the complete annihilation of their homes, that they just did not have the capacity to rebuild. And then for the following weeks to months, cholera outbreaks. We were in Sierra Leone during the Ebola outbreak, which was just horrendous for local communities and healthcare facilities. So when I returned to Australia, I certainly experienced what I now know is reverse culture shock. And it felt heavy, really heavy. In Australia, we generally live with more wealth and health. However, we're all still on this same planet, and we share the same atmosphere, the same climate, and decisions that we make impact that. So that's kind of, I guess, where I am now. I'm so excited that through Vets for Climate Action, I have an opportunity to align my love of horses, my experiences in veterinary research and teaching, and my deep desire to really help create a future where my children can continue to enjoy the exquisite environment that we have, and hope to see that their children and their grandchildren can have experiences like horse riding on the beaches in Mozambique. So I do think it certainly is possible, but we need to go into a little bit of detail here, I guess, about our current situation. So let's start with defining climate change. Claire mentioned I'm an epidemiologist, right? So we like to define things and we like to count things. So what is climate change? Well, climate change refers to long-term shifts in the Earth's temperatures and weather patterns. Such shifts can be natural due to changes in the sun's activity or large volcanic eruptions. But since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. Burning of these fossil fuels generates greenhouse gas emissions, which then act like this wonderful little warm blanket around the Earth, trapping the sun's heat and raising our temperatures. Our Earth's climate is now experiencing rapid and dangerous changes, and we are now seeing more and more of those effects through increased frequency of droughts and heat domes, major storm events and flooding, melting glaciers, and rising sea levels. The average temperature of the Earth's surface is now 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer than it was pre-industrial revolution in the 1800s, and it is warmer than any other time in the last 100,000 years. 2024, just last year, was the hottest recorded year in history, and the past 10 years were the 10 hottest on record. So put another way, it's very likely that Earth's coolest years are behind us, and things will only get hotter as we move forward. So, what does that mean for the future of professionals in the equine veterinary industry? Well, I guess I'll take a pause here because I would love to get an idea of actually who's in our audience tonight, who I'm speaking to and who we are. Do we have vets? Do we have nurses? Do we have horse owners? Do we just have our wonderful group of Veterinary for Climate Action groupies? I see Jeremy there. Hello. If anyone, I guess, would like to share on the chat group or turn off their mic and just very quickly state who you are and where you're coming from, that would be wonderful. Everyone's being shy.
Hi, Caitlin.
I'm a groupie. I'm happy to say I'm a groupie.
Oh, hello, Finola. Yes. And was that Catherine? You made
Hi,
it?
Caitlin. Yeah, finally got on home and on. So lovely to be here.
Now, I will be introducing Catherine and Finola shortly. So look, in my mind, I'm assuming that we have a few vets in the group, a few nurses in the group, a few concerned citizens. And that's great. It sounds like we're a wonderful group of educated and caring people in the veterinary or horse profession. So I guess you all probably have a fairly good awareness of some of the effects of climate change on your businesses or organisations that you're already feeling. These might include increasing insurance costs due to increased weather events. You might be noticing a rise in your electricity and fuel costs as we continue to use these finite fossil fuels as though they were in unlimited supply. Perhaps you're seeing disruptions to your normal operations due to the increasing occurrences of animal or human infectious disease outbreaks. Or maybe you're just sitting there with a building sense of hypocrisy or guilt as we strive to care for the health of animals, knowing very well that some of our practices to run our businesses are not sustainable and that they're actually contributing to this increase in carbon emissions. I know that's how I've been feeling. So let's get into what climate change means for our horses then. I mean, that's unfortunately a good and a bad thing. You know, horses kind of get under your skin, you fall in love with them, and you can't help but care for them. So how does climate change impact horse health? Well, look, you know, at the very least, horses are at high risk of being displaced, injured, or killed in extreme weather events like floods and bushfires. The 2019 and 2020 bushfires in Australia, which I wasn't present for, I was watching it from overseas, were just horrifying. And I've heard of stories of people, you know, rushing to get their horses out of areas that were about to burn. Much more recently, with the approaching cyclone Alfred, in the days beforehand, most of the Gold Coast was in chaos trying to move horses out of potentially flooding areas. So it is certainly a major concern and something that needs to be planned for. Rising temperatures and increased humidity certainly affect the performance and stamina of racehorses and sport horses. And when they overheat, they're at very high risk of heat stress, which, if not managed quickly and properly, can be fatal. Droughts and irregular rainfall patterns lead to a reduction of availability, consistency and quality of pasture and hay, and this also leads into increasing feed costs. And climate change and weather are definitely drivers of the increased incidence and shifting distributions that we're seeing of infectious diseases that affect both horses and humans. So, as horse owners and horse professionals, you are going to be the first responders. You are the ones who are going to come in and try to deal with these consequences. But what if I told you you could do a little bit more than that? That you could really make a difference at a higher level, rather than just on the ground, cleaning up the shit. So right now, equine veterinary professionals really do have a unique opportunity. You know, we're at the heart of the equine sector, business owners, and a trusted voice in the horse community and broader equine industries. If we take the lead in sustainability to reduce carbon emissions and start a journey towards net zero, I'm very confident others will follow. As I'm sure everybody here knows, as part of the Paris Agreement, Australia has committed to the goal of net zero by 2050. So here's another definition for you. What is net zero? What does it actually mean, and why is it important? Well, very brief, very simply put, when we burn fossil fuels, coal, petrol, and gas, they release carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is emitted into that atmosphere, warming up the earth. Methane, nitrous oxide, and even anesthetic gases such as isoflurane are all greenhouse gases. The earth and its diverse ecosystem is pretty good at absorbing carbon dioxide through its trees, grasses, and oceans. It has done this for millions of years, but there is only so much it can absorb. The problem now is that through our use of coal, petrol, and oil to make electricity and to drive ourselves around, far too many gases are being released into the atmosphere, and we need to get this back in balance. So that's what we mean when we're talking about carbon neutral. We want to get that back into balance so that the amount of emissions that we're producing are balanced out by the amount of carbon dioxide that can be absorbed. So net zero is now actually a legal requirement in Australia, compelling all businesses to reduce their emissions significantly. And the legislation aims for net zero emissions by 2050, like I said, with a critical interim target of a 43% reduction by 2030. Okay, so now I want you to do a little bit of thinking. Imagine this. Let's fast forward to 2035. The Australian veterinary industry is leading the way in sustainable animal health. Our vet practices are thriving. Our pets and horses are really managing quite well, considering. The industry has made a dramatic reduction in its carbon footprint without compromising on standards of care. From how we power our hospitals to the way we manage waste and water, with adjustments to travel and transportation, including hard choices in supplies we use. Small, smart changes have added up to make a massive impact. And the best part, it all started with decisions that you made a decade ago. So, do you think this is reality, or is this just a dream? Well, I'm sorry to say, but at the moment, this is not the trajectory that we are on, but it really could be. You know, it's still only 2025, but we need to start now. What do we need to do? Well, right now, you just need to be willing to start. We know it can be confusing and difficult, so that's why VfCA has been working really hard to develop this wonderful new program for you. So without further ado, I'm really excited to let you know about the beginning of our 2-year project to develop an equine emissions reduction program, an initiative designed to educate and empower the Australian equine veterinary industry to take action. We want to provide equine veterinary teams with the knowledge, tools, and support to reduce carbon emissions while maintaining the highest standards of care. Through this program, we'll explore practical science-based solutions, helping vets, hospitals, and clinics to cut their emissions, improve efficiency, and champion sustainability in their communities. This project has been evolving, as Steph will tell you, since a number of equine vets showed real interest in making sustainable changes, but they really felt that they didn't know where to start, and that the current climate care program targeted for small animal clinics really needed to be adjusted to have an equine focus. So VfCA have taken the reins on that. And they hired me and a few other wonderful team members who I'll introduce soon. So this program, I kind of started then with us taking a very close look at what we wanted to do, and we very, very quickly realised this program can't just be about veterinary practices. We would not be giving the whole equine sector a fair chance. Therefore, we are developing a program that will have the ability to reach the whole equine sector. Australia is currently home to an estimated 1 million domestic horses, with approximately 2% of the population owning horses and often managing substantial areas of land. The Australian equine sector is diverse, encompassing activities ranging from recreational riding to elite competitions, breeding, and racing. Notably, the thoroughbred industry serves as a significant economic contributor through its breeding programs, races, and large-scale national events. So, by working together, vets, horse owners, trainers, breeders, and industry leaders, I believe that we can drive powerful changes that will not only protect the future of our industry, but also safeguard the health of horses, people, and our planet. This program will be, like I said, translatable across these 3 broad divisions to have the most impact and benefit to the equine sector. So the equine emissions program overarching goal, I guess, is to educate and empower the Australian equine sector to make powerful changes to provide more sustainable veterinary care, reduce carbon emissions, and advocate for urgent climate action across equine community, veterinary community, and industry groups. Of course, vets have to come first, right? But the objectives of this program are overarching. So this program will deliver tailored approaches to address the unique needs of the diverse equine sector. I laugh because I was saying we need to address the unique needs of horse owners. That's me included. So we all know that's true. We will provide easy to follow tools offering step-by-step guidance on reducing carbon emissions and improving sustainability, both within veterinary practices and outside of that traditional veterinary clinic. We will provide the knowledge and skills for those vet teams to be able to effectively engage with their equine clients and industry stakeholders on sustainability and carbon reduction strategies. And that's something that I think is really important, particularly in the equine industry. yes, vets are a trusted voice, but there's also a lot of knowledge and a lot of other information across the equine sector. So it's really important that the vets have the language there to be able to talk about this, and that we're also teaching these strategies from the other side so we can have this meeting ground of communication. We're going to ensure that we have engagement with existing equine groups to educate and empower horse owners on strategies to reduce their own carbon hoof print. And I'll introduce a wonderful group that we're collaborating with tonight. We also think it's really important to put together a comprehensive hub of information and personalised guidance so that horse owners and different organisations can develop emergency response plans and biosecurity plans to be able to manage their horses and deal with the changing climate moving forward. Our program will offer guidance and support for carbon emission assessments, ongoing reporting, and implementation of carbon reduction strategies within the thoroughbred industry, with a focus on accountability and progress. So just a few goals we have there. Lucky for me, we are not starting from scratch. And to start off with the veterinary phase, we have our wonderful climate care program that was probably the one good thing to come from COVID lockdowns. And now that I have Jeremy here, feel free to jump in at any point. That COVID lockdown period, from what I hear, was just this wonderful opportunity for some amazingly inspirational and clever people to sit down and to develop this climate care program. The program now has been active for, I'm going to say, 2 years or nearly 2 years, starting off with a few pilot clinics and then progressing to a commercial product where clinics sign up for a 12-month course or program, sorry. So the current format has been a self-directed online learning program over that 12 months in one all-in, I guess, program. And this is where we would love to get some feedback from people about how this could work for equine vets specifically, whether or not having more micro-learning platforms where we have a smaller breakdown of modules, but also with the options to have the full complete program together. So this current course provides a really inspirational and easy to follow framework that the vet teams, work together to engage in making these changes. And that's a really strong point of it. It's not just about working out what needs to be done. It's about inspiring everyone in the team and creating a culture so that they can make sure these changes stick. First of all, the clinics nominate a climate champion who is the real driver for disseminating the information from the program and implementing those changes. The delivery of the online course currently is through Tribal Habits learning platform, and it consists of an introductory model and then 6 educational models. So the first module, sorry, not models, module is Water for Life. Now, Jeremy, you jump in any point if I'm getting tongue twisted here. So Water for Life is a great module which goes from the basics of kind of where our water comes from and the impacts of climate change to our water supply. It also shows step by step how a clinic can assess their water use and make simple changes that will save money and protect our precious water resources. No Time to Waste is a wonderfully in-depth module, which really highlighted for me a lot of what we're not doing in vet practice or what we could do a lot better. So it really talks about what happens to waste, how this is contributing to climate change, and it's got very in-depth how-tos for recycling, and teaching really clinics how to be more efficient at using and disposing of resources, both to reduce your costs and also just to keep waste out of landfill. The next module is on energy efficiency, and this dives deep into how energy use contributes to climate change and really ensures that there's a strong understanding of each practice's specific energy uses. It's something that really most members of the team may never have thought about before. It then shows you and guides, step by step how you can implement really simple changes to improve your energy efficiency and save money for the clinic. The power of renewables and the wonderful veterinary specific carbon calculator is in the next module. It really goes through the different types of renewable energy, and I'm going to show a very interesting horse specific type of renewable energy coming up. But this module talks about how your practice can purchase, produce, store and use energy from renewable sources, and how each clinic can start reducing their carbon footprint so that you can eventually aim for carbon neutral. Module 5 is buying for a better future. Now, this introduces the concepts of ethical procurement and the circular economy and explores the buying power of practices and how we as veterinary teams can use this to then advocate for better products and services moving forward. The final module is called Healthcare Without Harm, and this really dives deep into using anaesthetic gases and where there are opportunities to reduce the use of anaesthetic gases by adjusting, well, first of all, I guess, doing a systems audit of your current anaesthetic standards and then making changes. Now, Jeremy can go into far more depth about the wonderful modifications they have implemented in their practice. And he can assure you that he doesn't know why they were ever doing anything different in the past, that they're wonderful new pre-med protocols, just even clinically, aside from their amazing reduction or ability to reduce their gases use, have such a better clinical effect. So this module also talks about pharmaceuticals, disinfectants, and other chemicals that may be used, to care for our patients. And how we can use them differently to ensure that our teams are safe while minimising environmental impact. So, Jeremy, this is where I was going to use your clinic as a wonderful case study. Don't just take my word for it. The Brimbank Veterinary Clinic in Melbourne, I think, is a wonderful example of, well, it actually is the first ever carbon neutral veterinary practice in Australia. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me? Oh, you finally got me.
I got you.
Yes. Look, we're the first registered carbon neutral. I did find that there were a couple of other practices, actually quite a few years before us, who've taken steps to reduce their carbon footprint and do their own carbon neutral. But this is the first one registered with Climate Active, which was the kind of highest standard of certification. So, but really, we did it as a. I just wanted to find out what it was about because no one had done it before, and we had lots of solar panels. We thought, well, we must be carbon neutral, but in actual fact, there's a bit more to it than that. And so it sort of started on this journey of, well, about 5 years now of joining Steps for Climate Action and developing this program and finding out what are the sort of key elements of reducing emissions and ultimately charting a path towards net zero in practice. So we're still on that journey, but lots of learning opportunities along the way and lots of spin-off benefits, I'd have to say, which has been great.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I did pop up here very quickly the latest report from CVS. So Brimbank Vet is now a part of CVS Group. And it seems that they're a wonderful group who have their own, I guess, sustainability policies and have really jumped on board with Vets for Climate Action, which is wonderful to see. And they've now got, is it 5 other clinics or 5 clinics, including yours, that are now a part of the program?
Yeah, so they're running a pilot program of 5 practices that are using the climate care program from the VfCA. And we're just really, I guess, starting with the 2 key areas that people are most interested in, which is waste management and recycling. That's what everyone wants to do. But now there's a recognition that, if you're going to do something about climate change, you really need to reduce your carbon footprint. So you need to understand your carbon footprint. And so all the practices have just done a preliminary scope 1 and 2, but it covers about 30% of your emissions. So if you can get that to zero and the technology is there now, there's huge opportunities and you can actually make a difference. So it's just win and win.
it's just great to see as well, from my point of view, that, you know, a corporate group is jumping on board with that. So that is really, really promising. And I just had one quick overview, I guess, on the financial aspects. You know, I think it's very clear to everyone on the benefits of reducing your carbon emissions. But like Jeremy said, the kind of side benefits have also been not just clinically, but also saving money for your practice. Now, because I've realized the time, I'm going to have to go over this very quickly. But it looks as though there's been annual saving from energy bills of over $6,000, just from changes in anaesthetic protocols, annual savings of around $5,000. And then just from being able to have better recycling and review suppliers through changing waste protocols, a savings of around $5,000. Now, that is phenomenal. So the other real benefits that I just wanted to mention for participating in programs such as this include, you know, recruitment. Anyone working in the veterinary profession right now realizes how hard that is. And the reality is that the next generation of vets are much more environmentally conscious, and that they want to work in clinics that foster this as a culture. I would also add to that the fact that the clients now are making big decisions on where they're going to spend their money based on aligned sustainability values. So, you know, I don't think we need convincing, but there certainly are a lot of benefits. So, what are we going to do in phase one? Well, to start off with, we have a few steps here, and I do have a team working on this. I'm going to introduce everyone to in a moment. But basically, for the veterinary program, we are going to review the current CCP modules and modify where we can things for equine practice. This will include the addition of totally novel topics that weren't covered in the small animal CCP, such as land management, management of manure, and also stables, the bedding that's created from stables. We will certainly make sure that we have a deep dive into the research and expert advice onto any suggestions involving clinical protocols changing, such as, I mean, look, in my mind, from what I remember in horse practice, there were always a lot of procedures, field anaesthetics, where you would use TIVA anyway, where we wouldn't actually be putting horses onto gaseous anaesthetics as opposed to in a small animal clinic. But it will be really interesting to get a bit of feedback from vet clinics now to look at their current protocols and then work with the experts to see how we can tweak and adjust to try and bring down any excessive gaseous anaesthetic use. We also are going to make sure that we have a lot of in-depth resources about transitioning to electric vehicles or hybrid fleet vehicles, because the reality is in equine practice, that is a huge component that just doesn't exist in the small animal world. We'll also include information on what vets are eligible for in terms of discounted green loans to facilitate eco-friendly assets. Now, this will continue going on in the background, so these steps are not necessarily sequential, but next month, to start getting some engagement from current equine clinics, we're going to be sending out an expression of interest just to see who might be interested in getting involved. This will include online surveys to gather information, look at current attitudes so that we can refine our project, and also then look at getting some pilot clinics involved so that we can test out any of the new individual modules. Then, of course, we'll be getting feedback and going back to square one to change everything, refine things, and make it absolutely perfect before we have the final product out and ready. So this is where I would like to introduce the rest of the team. As Claire, I think, mentioned, I am on as a 2-day-a-week project manager or program development manager for the 2-year project period. And then we have the wonderful Peter Curl, who apologises he couldn't make it tonight. Peter is coming on from the industry arm of the project. And he has just a real wealth of experience behind him. He's a regulatory veterinarian with extensive experience in equine health. He has worked in Australia, Hong Kong, and the UK, and his career includes leadership roles overseeing welfare programs, regulatory compliance, and industry-wide initiatives that balance performance, ethics, and safety. As Chief Veterinary Officer at Racing New South Wales, from 2022 to 2024, Peter provided expert counsel on equine health, biosecurity, and anti-doping strategies, involving advanced diagnostic systems and spearheading education programs to foster future industry leaders. At the Hong Kong Jockey Club, he developed the Hong Kong Jockey Club Equine Welfare Plan and launched a global leading retirement program. He collaborated on groundbreaking welfare research, setting benchmarks in post-racing care. Peter is passionate about sustainability and the social license of horse racing, and he's really committed to integrating ethical practices and innovative solutions to secure the future of equine welfare and create meaningful change that benefits horses, stakeholders, and the environment. So it's wonderful to have Peter on board, and I'm sure at the next masterclass, where we have a little bit more content to talk about, Peter will get involved then. Now, Catherine, I'm struggling actually reading the white on the black background. I see it there. So I don't know if anyone else, or it's just my eyes as they're aging. So I will introduce Catherine. She is the chair of our Equine Emissions Reduction Program Advisory Committee. And I was so pleased to hear that she agreed to be this role in a completely volunteer basis. It's so generous, and you're such a wonderful person to have on the team. So Catherine is an accomplished equine vet with a PhD in microbiology. She's a member of the Australian and New Zealand College of Veterinary Scientists in horse medicine, and her expertise spans emerging infectious diseases, antimicrobial stewardship, and One Health. Catherine consults for Scone Equine Hospital on pathology and infectious diseases, while also working for the Scone Equine Hospital Laboratory. She holds a position on the educational subcommittee of the EVA and is a former policy advisory councillor and executive member of the EVA. I'm going to jump a little bit because I'm running out of time. Her career includes time in mixed and equine practice in Australia and England, including stud practice, and her expertises have shaped her passion for advancing equine health and addressing global challenges such as antimicrobial resistances through innovative solutions and collaboration. There you go, Catherine. Now, I'll probably go a little bit more briefly into the bios of the rest of our wonderful advisory committee, but really everyone is here today, I think. Very impressive, seeing as though we haven't actually had our first advisory committee meeting even. That will be next week. So a big thank you to everyone for making the time to come. First of all, we have Dr. Neil Walton, who is currently staff at Charles Sturt University. He's a lecturer in veterinary anaesthesia, but has worked a lot in equine practice in Australia, and including 3 years on the racetrack in Brisbane and on the Sunshine Coast, before 23 years at Agnes Bank Equine Clinic in Sydney. Wow. Neil has a membership also in the Australian New Zealand College of Veterinary Scientists in Anaesthesia and Critical Care, and has a strong passion in conservation medicine. So next we have Dr. Sarah Van Dyke. Sarah is a vet with diverse interests, and these range from One Health, epidemiology, and international development. So she currently works as an Australian health specialist with the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. Previously, Sarah was a veterinary officer for the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries and Forestry, working on biosecurity policy, international trade, and disease risk management. She has over 10 years' experience as a mixed animal and equine veterinarian, providing veterinary services in clinical, regulatory, and development settings across multiple countries, including supporting endurance races in Mongolia and Argentina. And this is Sarah, I think, in Mongolia. Wonderful. Now, we also have Finola, who I see is here in the audience. Wonderful. Finola is a graduate of the University of Sydney in 1990 with the University Medal. She completed an internship at Camden, followed by a PhD in equine thermoregulation during exercise. Finola was in equine practice before starting with SIVA Animal Health, which is where she currently now holds a position as Technical Services Manager. Finola has competed in horse trials for many years and is very concerned about climate change and has been an enthusiastic supporter of Vets for Climate Action for several years. So Finola, thank you. It's wonderful to have you on the advisory committee. And then finally, I'm not sure if Diana is here, but I would love to introduce Diana O'Donnell, who is the project manager for a wonderful initiative called Canter for Climate. Canter for Climate is a community group. They are on a mission to help horse owners in the community to better understand, take action to reduce their own carbon emissions. They really, similar to VfCA, are doing a lot with a little and are run mainly with volunteers. So I'm really, really pleased that we're going to be collaborating with Canter for Climate on this project. And they're going to have a big component of the community engagement arm of the equine emissions reduction program. So this was where I got to. One very cool thing I wanted to share before we run out of time and can still get to questions. I discovered that in Helsinki, for 5 years in a row now, one of their international horse show jumping, the FEI World Cup jumping qualifiers, has been entirely run. Their electricity has been entirely powered by horse manure. It's amazing to see things like this and really gives me hope for the future in Australia. The scary thing is they've been doing this since 2017, so we are a little bit behind the game. But I thought I'd just very quickly show you what they're doing.
Don't know if the sound's working, Caitlin.
Caitlin, I don't think the video sound's working, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
We can share it after.
We'll share it after. Yeah, definitely. Let's not waste time on that one now then. It's pretty amazing though. So they have a very local energy creating plant nearby where they're able to actually take the manure from the event and in real time essentially turn it into electricity. Very, very cool. Good on the Finns, hey? We'll share the link. Okay, so basically here is where I would like to talk about opportunities. How can anybody here tonight or anybody watching this presentation offer help and support? Well, to start off with, you could find out more about Vets for Climate Action. You can sign up to be a supporter, make a donation. You could discuss the current climate care program with any vet friends or colleagues that you think would be interested. And better yet, discuss it with those that you think may not be interested and convince them. You could start talking to your own clinic. If you're going back to work tomorrow at an equine practice, take a minute to talk to your practice manager or your boss about this cool project that we're starting and the possibility of becoming a pilot clinic to test out some of the new equine modules moving forward later in the year. Feel free to send me an email if you know of a stud or a pony club that you might work with who you think might love to get involved with such a project. Or maybe you've just started your own podcast and you'd like to invite us for a chat. We are really open to all suggestions, so please, nothing is silly. I would just like to end by saying that I think the equine sector is held together by pure passion and bloody determination, you know, both for horses, for achievements, and for the communities that we serve. So we really, at the centre of that, have an opportunity to bring that same passion and focus to creating a more sustainable future. The Equine Emissions Reduction Program is just the start of a long-term shift that has been long overdue. The steps we take now, no matter how small, will shape that future for the equine veterinary care in Australia. Together, we can reduce our carbon footprint, protect the environments that our horses depend on, and lead the way forward for the entire equine sector. So I leave you with the question to ponder. What role will you play? What changes can you start making today that will help? And then I just share one of my favourite quotes. It's a terrible thing, I think, in life to wait until you are ready. I have this feeling that actually no one is ever ready to do anything. There is almost no such thing as ready. There is only now. So thank you very much for your time. And Claire, sorry, I know I said it was probably 20 minutes. We do still have some time for questions or discussions. So
We do. Thank you so much, Caitlin. That it felt like 20 minutes. It was so informative and really, really, really good. So thank you so much. But I now please open the floor up for any questions that anyone might have. Feel free to ask them with your camera on or off, or otherwise pop them in the chat, and I'm happy to go through them there.
And if nobody has any questions for us, I definitely have some questions for you all, you know. Like I said earlier, well, actually, I had a good question I thought would be fitting for this. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. All right, let's think about horse vets. We can produce this wonderful program for them, but how are we going to get them thirsty enough to really lap it up? Anyone got some great ideas?
Caitlin, I think we just have to get out there and start talking to vet practices to start with. And I think the initiative of just putting out the expression of interest and getting out there, letting them know that what's going on is going to be really important. We've all got really good networks. We all know lots of people in the equine sector, and we all need to start as the hub to start just talking to those practices and all of our networks. We all have spheres of influence, and it's time we started using them, I think, and just getting more active. We're all here, some of us a little bit late, I apologise, means that we care deeply about these issues. And I think that's what's, you know, when we're all lying in bed at night thinking, you know, it's just getting hotter and hotter, and how we're going to deal with this for our animals, for the whole of the animal kingdom living on this planet. You know, we're all obviously very concerned, and I think it's time we just started reaching out to all our spheres of influence. We've all got good networks.
Yeah, perfect. Wonderful. Are there any questions in the chat?
Any questions?
Claire?
No, there
Oh,
aren't.
Jeremy.
Oh, sorry, Jeremy.
Yeah, look, I was just going to say, look, you know, get him to drink from the trough, but look, this problem's not going to go away, and so we may as well start looking for opportunities. And it's been my experience with the VfCA that once you start looking for opportunities, there's heaps of opportunities unfolding, and it's the whole landscape's changing really quickly. And you know, we can see with solar panels to batteries and electric vehicles how quickly that landscape's changed and how much of an opportunity is there. And that's just the start. So, you know, lots of opportunities really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeremy. Is anybody else in the chat? No, haven't got any. I think if we haven't got any others and anyone thinks of a question like I usually do as soon as everything's done and I'm lying in bed at night, please either email myself or Caitlin or info@vfca.org.au. Steph has just put the email address for the info questions in the chat there, so feel free to take a screenshot or write that down, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. But without further ado, Caitlin, unbelievable. Thank you so much for taking the time to create that presentation. And I think on behalf of everyone, it was very informative and covered a lot of bases. I hope everyone feels like they have a a lot more of an understanding of what we're trying to do at Vets for Climate Action, and the space we're trying to grow and create. For climate action. So I'd just like to thank everyone for attending tonight. And I will be uploading the recording of this to our website and YouTube channel. And as it was mentioned a couple of times tonight, at Vets for Climate Action, we are the voice for all Australian animals. And we invite you to become a champion in your community and strengthen that voice however you can. So thank you once again, Caitlin, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Claire.
Thanks,
Amazing.
Caitlin. That was amazing. Really appreciate you sharing our vision for the equine emissions reduction program, and looking forward to everyone's involvement in making this a reality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Okay. See you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.